Limit as t goes to -2 of t to the fourth minus 2t squared minus 8 over t cubed minus 3t squared minus 4t plus 12. The first thing we're going to do is try plugging a -2 in for each of the t's. In the numerator, that'll give us -2 to the fourth minus 2 times -2 squared minus 8. In the denominator, that will give us -2 cubed minus 3 times -2 squared minus 4 times -2 plus 12. In the numerator, -2 to the fourth, 4 negatives is a positive 16, minus 2 times a -2 squared, which is a minus 2 times a 4, which is a -8, and then minus 8, over -2 cubed, that's a -8, -3 times a -2 squared, -3 times a 4, -12, minus 4 times a -2 is a positive 8, and then plus 12. In the numerator, 16 minus 8 is 8, minus another 8 is 0. In the denominator, the -8 and the positive 8 cancel, the -12 and the positive 12 cancel, and we also have a 0. We have a 0 over 0 indeterminate form. We need to rework this. Since these are power functions, we will rework this by the factor and cancel method. So we have limit as t goes to -2 of, now the numerator is a trinomial quadratic of t squared. T squared times t squared is t to the fourth, and we have the middle term with the t squared, and then the constant, so this will factor with a t squared and a t squared. We need two numbers that multiply to be a -8 and add to be a -2. It sounds like a -4 and a +2 will work for this. Down the denominator, we actually have a 4-term cubic function, and the only method we have really to factor that is to try the group factoring method. I'm going to group together the t cubed and the minus 3t squared, and then the -4t and the positive 12. Notice I group two pairs with a plus sign between them. Part of the method of factoring that denominator is going to be finding common factors with those grouped pairs. Now in the numerator, we do have a difference of squares, t squared minus 4, which can factor to t plus 2 and t minus 2. And there's the t plus 2 that would be making it the 0 in the numerator as t goes to -2. I expected to see a t plus 2 in the numerator. I expect to see one in the denominator as well when we do fully factor it. The common factor of the first pairing of t cubed minus 3t squared will be a t squared. So t squared times t minus 3. The second pair we can factor out at least a 4. Now if we factor out a positive 4, we'll get a -t plus a 3. But that doesn't quite match this t minus 3. We need the opposite sign of that. So we're going to want to factor out a -4 so that we have a positive t and a minus 3. Part of group factoring requires these two to be exactly the same. And if you cannot make them the same, you actually cannot group factor it. But if you can make them the same, which we were able to, it does group factor. All we need to do for the next step is factor out that t minus 3. So we do have to go a little further with this. The numerator is fully factored. This t squared plus a term doesn't factor any further. So we'll leave everything in the numerator as is. In the denominator, what you do next for the group factoring is factor out the t minus 3 from each of those two terms, and that will leave us with a t squared minus 4. Now we're getting closer to being able to remove the 0 over 0 trouble, but not quite yet. We have a difference of squares right here that's making a 0. It needs to factor a little further. Remember, it's a t plus 2 that we would expect to be making the 0 over 0 here. In the numerator we have t squared plus 2. We have a t plus 2. We have a t minus a 2. In the denominator we have a t minus 3. And then we have a difference of squares which will factor to a t plus 2 and a t minus 2. At this point we can cancel the t plus 2's. That's what's making the 0 over 0. If you wish, you can also cancel the t minus 2's. It's not a requirement since these are not technically making 0, but they are the same and therefore they can also cancel. And that reduces this to a t squared plus 2 in the numerator over a t minus 3 in the denominator. We can now try plugging in the negative 2. In the numerator we'll have negative 2 squared plus 2. In the denominator we will have a negative 2 minus a 3. Negative 2 squared is a positive 4 plus 2. Minus 2 minus 3 is a negative 5. 4 plus 2 is a 6. And I will end up with a negative 6 over 5.